let's move on to ICS, replicated security, partial security. Actually, yeah, I mean, this was sort of the main reason why I wanted to get you on here is to talk about partial set security. Uh, this idea of shared security on the hub has been around for a while. It was launched some time ago now. I think over a year and a half ago, maybe even 2 years ago. Time seems to escape me these days. But
Well, it's been
so
about
there's
a
all
year. It's
these.
been about a year that's been live, but yeah.
Right. Okay. And so there's these three different terms, right? So there's interchain security, ICS, and then there's replicated security and partial site security. And I'm still confused as to what these things mean and how they relate to each other. So maybe just sort of clearing up the confusion here.
Yeah. So I do apologize for the confusion. I'm also like, I think it's, generally we should just call them all ICS, interchain security. And replicated security and partial site security are just two different variations of it. I would actually say partial site security is kind of like ICS v2. So we're going to be doing some marketing work to kind of clear up those terms. But in general, it's interchain security. That's the hub's restaking product. So the original version of it, which is in production now, which kind of went live about a year ago, is replicated security. And replicated security, every validator on the Cosmos hub runs every consumer chain. So if a consumer chain joins, every validator has to run it. It's actually not quite every validator. 5% of those smallest ones don't. But in effect, that is actually a large number of validators because there's many small ones. But effectively, it's like every validator has to run it. So that is the highest level of security. And there was actually an interesting. I'll get into this a little bit later, but there's something called the subset problem. There's a lot of thinking we've done around the security properties of these different variations. So I'd love to cover in more detail. But just to keep a high level for now, if the entire validator set's running it, you have the full security of the Cosmos hub. You have full economic alignment basically, and it is the highest level of security. However, along with that high level of security and the high level of power you get from an app chain, the expenses for validators are somewhat high as well. So validators running another chain, they kind of need to run another server, and you multiply that by 180, it's a lot of money. And so that's something where I think we didn't necessarily last year, we didn't do a good job anticipating how, and people were saying this, and I think we always knew there were going to be scaling limits to it. But basically, that's the major downside of replicated security is the scaling limits. So to get every validator to run a consumer chain, they all have to, or at least majority of them have to agree to it and pass the proposal. And so we have two very high profile, very high quality consumer chains running, Neutron and Stride. I'm very happy about that. But it has been kind of a high barrier entry to the new chains just starting out. And so that's a partial set security, which is really just the next version of interchain security is addressing. So with that, you don't have to have every validator run every chain. You can have a chain start basically permissionlessly, and as soon as validators start opting in, it starts running. And so with that, it allows chains to sort of start up in a very lightweight way, have the Cosmos Hub be a place to find a validator set, get started, get launched, and scale their security as they need to. And what that allows us to do is really ramp up, sort of like open the floodgates to basically let everybody who wanted to run a consumer chain run a consumer chain. And that's also, our ramp up of the BD and growth efforts are, enabled by that, because then we can bring a lot of people in, get them started, get them going, and there's not this big hurdle of the governance proposal. So that's what that distinction is all about. There is a feature in partial set security that's called top N. So there will be an option for chains to have guaranteed security. So for Neutron and Stride, for example, they're going to move to that. And what that does is you can have a setting that says, for this consumer chain, we want to mandate that the top N% for Neutron and Stride, or the top 95% of validators have to continue running these chains. And that's good for chains that do need to continue with a high level of security. Or if we get other sort of higher profile chains coming in, they might also use that. So chains that can clear that governance hurdle may want to use that. For the majority of chains, though, I think it's going to be they can just launch permissionlessly, validators start opting in, and it's a lot smoother. So that's kind of the, that's to clear that up. It's all just interchain security, and partial set security makes it easier to launch.
So this top end thing you mentioned, so that would mandate that validators run, or at least the top 95% of validators run security for these chains. Is that subject to governance?
Yes. Yeah, it has to be. Yeah. So, regular opt-in consumer chains, they can, that's where there's no top end, permissionless. They can launch permissionlessly. I think in the first version, there will be a governance proposal for every consumer chain. But that's kind of an implementation detail. But it will be soon. It will be completely permissionless. And but yeah, for top end, if you're mandating that a certain top percent of validators run it, there does need to be a governance proposal. So top 95% is kind of basically equivalent to replicated security, the old version. But you could also do something like top 66%. 66% of the validators actually is only 24 nodes. So that's pretty interesting because you get like the majority of the same security, but it is only 24 nodes that have to run it, reducing the costs by a lot. But yeah, I think it's going to be less important than opt-in security. It's more just there if you need it.
The vision here seems to be kind of different from the original vision of interchain security, at least how I remember it. I remember interchain security being this idea that the Cosmos Hub would secure a handful of chains, maybe 10, 20 chains. These would be very high quality projects like, the Neutrons, the Strides, the Nobles, aligned and complementary with amongst each other, no competing chains on the hub. And I kind of like that. I felt that this would create sort of an ecosystem of applications that would create a lot of value for the hub, and that this curation was really an important aspect of interchain security. It seems now that shifting to a more permissionless model where the hub becomes kind of a security marketplace and validators can opt in or opt out of securing certain chains.